A busy commercial aerodrome with large passenger jets, controlled airspace, ground control and marshallers. For the inexperienced private pilot, the thought of landing here may seem daunting, but that's what I'm about to do. Welcome to part 4 of my series on UK aerodrome procedures and radiotelephony. This series started off at an air-ground aerodrome where pilots make all the decisions, and we've worked our way up through aerodromes with flight information and full ATC. Now we're going to visit an aerodrome in controlled airspace with radar. Southend Airport is just 30 minutes away from my base at Red Hill. It's in Class D controlled airspace, and so we will need a clearance to enter that.
But don't let that put you off. It's not really that scary at all. Yes, there may be some additional terminology that you have to get used to. There may be additional frequencies that you have to tune. And you might have to grapple with additional hazards such as wake turbulence. But have faith in your abilities and have trust in air traffic control, who are actually there to help you.
First of all, most, if not all, aerodromes of this size will have ATIS, an automatic terminal information service, recorded information that sounds something like this.
Airfield information, transition level 75. Danger air Delta 1 straight Charlie and Delta 1 straight Delta active. Surface wind 310 degrees, 12 knots, varying between 280 degrees and 340 degrees. Visibility 10 kilometers or more. Loud. View at 2,300 feet. Temperature 12, dew point 3, UNH 1017 hectopascals. Threshold QFE 1016 hectopascals. On turf contact, report altimeter setting and information. Foxtrot received.
The ATIS is great. We've got the runway in use, we've got the weather, we've got the wind, and we've also been warned about the danger areas locally that are active. And now that we've got the ATIS, the Automatic Terminal Information Service information Foxtrot, we can call up Southend now and let them know we're inbound.
The initial call at an aerodrome in controlled airspace is very similar to your initial call at any aerodrome, with the only difference really being that you have the latest ATIS information. Aerodromes in controlled airspace usually have a multitude of frequencies to choose from: director, radar, approach, tower, ground, ops, fire, clearance, delivery and so on. The published aerodrome information will usually tell you which frequency to call first. In the case of Southend, we're going to make our initial call to Southend Radar.
Southend Radar, Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo, inbound with Foxtrot 1017.
Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo, Southend Radar, roger, basic service, QNH is 1017, squawk 4575.
Basic service, QNH 1017, squawk 4575, Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo. So far, very normal, right? But we're going to be identified because this is a radar unit, and then they'll let us know what our clearances are to enter controlled airspace.
Romeo, report your level, and are you flying VFR?
1,900 feet to VFR 1017, Golf Oscar Romeo.
Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo, roger, cleared to enter Southend controlled airspace, position for a downwind left-hand join, runway 23, VFR, not above altitude 2,000 feet.
Join for a downwind left-hand join runway 23 VFR, not above 2,000 feet VFR, and clear to enter, Golf Oscar Romeo. So kind of muddled it up a little bit, but basically I reported back the key information. So it's a downwind left-hand join for runway 23. So we'll go a bit further north here, and then we'll take a direct track towards Southend. Going a bit further north to keep out of Rochester.
If you've never entered controlled airspace in the UK, you won't have heard this before.
Golf Oscar Romeo, enter controlled airspace in 4 miles, radar control service inside.
Radar control once entering the zone, Golf Oscar Romeo. So that's a different call, radar control service. What does that mean? Basically you do everything you're told to do. If you're told to take up a heading, you take up a heading. If you can't take up that heading, you tell them you can't take up that heading. If they give you an altitude restriction, you abide by it. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble. But if you have any doubts, if you don't understand the clearance, then make sure you ask.
Now we're in controlled airspace, we can expect to receive traffic information about other aircraft in the area. I've already programmed the next frequency, so I'm ready for it when told to switch.
Golf Oscar Romeo, contact Southend Tower 127.730.
Contact Southend Tower 127.730, Golf Oscar Romeo.
Normally, when changing frequency in controlled airspace, I make my initial call to the next unit using my full call sign, and I read back the instructions I'm currently following.
Southend Tower, Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo, 8 miles southwest, joining downwind left hand 23.
Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo, Southend Tower, report downwind left hand.
Report downwind left hand, Golf Oscar Romeo. One thing I will say about talking to an aerodrome in controlled airspace, keep your radio as crisp and as concise as you can. Brakes, undercarriage mixture, fuel, landing light, carb heat, DI. Golf Oscar Romeo, downwind left hand 23.
Golf Oscar Romeo, report final, number 1.
Report final number 1, Golf Oscar Romeo. It's a bigger runway, so there's going to be an illusion of being lower than you are.
Golf Oscar Romeo, runway 23, clear to land, wind 310 degrees, 12 knots.
Clear to land 23, Golf Oscar Romeo. Got a hell of a crosswind going on. It's gusty, so we're keeping in a bit of speed. Now we've got a hell of a lot of sink. Be right hand down.
At a big aerodrome like this, make sure you've studied the chart thoroughly, as the taxi instructions can be long and complicated.
Golf Oscar Romeo, vacate next left at Charlie, taxi to the north apron with the marshaller on your left-hand side.
Next left at Charlie, taxi with the marshaller to the north apron, Golf Oscar Romeo.
You might want to revise your marshalling signals too, as you never know when you may need them.
Squawk 5067, uniform clearance.
Correct.
So there we go, we've landed at Southend. Not all that different from other places perhaps that you've been to. Got a marshaller there. All good fun, eh? Let's go and find out now how it all works behind the scenes. We're going to go and visit the tower.
Delta leading controlled airspace, basic service. Traffic approaching Gravesend from the southeast, indicating 2,300 feet VFR Cessna.
Up in the radar room, sometimes there is one controller. If it's busy, there are two.
Golf Uniform Tango, say again, aircraft type.
Right now, Mark Morgan is working on the Lower Airspace Radar service, call sign Southend Radar, and he's responsible for all the traffic outside Southend controlled airspace in a 30-40 mile radius. John Williams is on the director frequency, handling everything inside controlled airspace.
This is the aircraft here, it's just called Sloper 02, basic service just south of the Isle of Sheppey, and has requested a controlled airspace crossing via the Southend overhead, then back to Stapleford.
An aircraft, Stapleford 02, has requested a zone transit, and Mark now needs to see how John wants to handle it.
John is director today, I'm providing a large, so this airspace is under John's control. For any transits that require the airspace, I have to basically coordinate with my colleague. John, coordination. Sloper 02 to the south of the Isle of Sheppey, VFR, Pier28, transit overhead, then back to Stapleford. To you, Wilco. Coordination affected. Sloper 02, contact Southend director, call sign only, 132.455.
The flight progress strip is physically passed to the director, and he now waits for Stapleford 02 to call him. Henry Spurgeon is another of the ATCOs here. You're using paper strips. A lot of towers and radar units have gone on to digital now.
Yeah.
I suppose you can't go wrong with paper.
You can't. It's an old-fashioned but reliable method. We've always been using paper strips and the plastic holders that come with them, and the sort of wooden boards in front of the controllers is a very simple but reliable and safe method of controlling. It's clear, and we're trained from day one, week one, to maintain our board and our strips up to date as we speak to pilots and give them clearances and issue instructions, so that at any point that flight progress board is up to date and live with what's happening, and it's very reliable in that a controller that suddenly needs to take over from somebody else, they can pick up the situation simply by looking at the board and the markings on the flight progress strips.
On Air 47 Tango Victor Southend direct, good afternoon. After noise abatement, turn left heading 170 degrees.
After noise abatement, left heading 170 degrees, 47 Tango Victor.
You quite often hear that a controller is on the phone to someone, and whilst I've been in here and looking around, I can see there's quite a few phone calls going on. You've got EasyJets and Ryanairs and so on taking off and going into controlled airspace, into the London controlled airspace, and that's all being done by phone.
Yeah. There's a lot of coordination involved in the movement of aircraft here, and a commercial aircraft can take between 3 and 6 phone calls right from the beginning of getting the squawks and things from London to getting all the appropriate releases and coordination effected. So there's a lot of background work that goes on just getting that aircraft airborne. And so when pilots are speaking to us on the frequencies and they're often told to stand by, or they perhaps weren't heard and the controller says I was on the landline, they are literally on the landline doing other bits in the background around just transmitting on the frequency.
Up one flight of stairs is the visual control room. Up here they're responsible for the airfield, runway and ATZ. Their call sign is Southend Tower.
Easy 76 Romeo Mike, surface wind 330 degrees, 12 knots, runway 23, cleared for takeoff.
Takeoff, runway 23, 76 Romeo Mike.
Being an aerodrome in controlled airspace, procedures at Southend are very different from those at other types of aerodrome. So what's the main difference between you being a control service in controlled airspace and say an ATZ with full air traffic control?
I think it's just a different level of control. So of course we are a full air traffic control unit and with the adjacent controlled airspace. And so for a private pilot operating in and out of Southend, it's just that appreciation that you can't just do what you want, and it's everything requires a clearance and permission. So it's a lot more communication, a lot more pilot awareness as well, because there's a bigger picture here. It's a busier airfield, there's lots of other things going on, and so pilots just need to have that sort of situational awareness, and then whilst flying as well, and appreciating that whilst inside controlled airspace they're operating under a clearance, they must adhere to that clearance, and if they don't, there is a safety implication. Often we're giving them a specific routing or an altitude restriction for a reason.
Even if you don't want to land at an aerodrome like Southend, you might want to use their airspace. So what advice do the controllers have for pilots looking for zone transits?
I would say planning is key. Before you even leave your home, when you're planning in the morning and doing your weather planning and your flight plan and checking everything as we do as pilots, also have that plan A, plan B. You want to go from A to B and you'd like to go through Southend's controlled airspace, but have a plan B, have a plan that keeps you clear of Southend's controlled airspace. Plan an easy route, pick places, VRPs, not only for your convenience and your ease of navigation, but also for our ease, so that when you do speak to us on the frequency and you request a transit, you're giving us quite a clear route that we can also understand and appreciate. It's just having that awareness and appreciation of the job we're trying to achieve at the same time. We accommodate for the vast majority of transit requests. We refuse them occasionally, and that's predominantly just due to traffic and workload at the time. But for the most part, we will accommodate a transit. We may request you to slightly change your route or to adhere to certain altitude or routing instructions. So be prepared for that, but also just be prepared for if we do need to say remain outside controlled airspace, then do that.
EASA 76 Romeo Mike release, cabin return to for Stapleford 11.
Many thanks to Southend Airport for letting me film. I hope you found this useful. Well, I've had a great visit here at Southend. It's time now to get back in the plane, and I'm going to demonstrate the radiotelephony and aerodrome procedures for a departure from an aerodrome like this, one in controlled airspace.
Now, one of the differences about a controlled aerodrome is normally that you request permission to start engines.
I've listened to the ATIS already.
Southend Tower, Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo, parked on the north apron with Lima 1018. Request engine start.
Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo, Southend Tower, hello, start's approved.
Start approved, Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo.
Clear prop! I've already booked out on the phone with the tower. That's a requirement here, so my call for taxi is abbreviated.
Southend Tower, Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo on the north apron, ready to taxi with Lima, QNH 1018.
Golf Oscar Romeo, left turn taxi holding point Alpha 1, runway 23.
Left turn taxi Alpha 1, runway 23, Golf Oscar Romeo.
It's quite a long taxi to Alpha 1 from the north apron, with lots of places to go wrong. Taxi slowly and follow the chart carefully. Don't get distracted by the views. After the engine is run up, we're ready to go. Expect to be given a departure clearance, and those clearances usually sound just like this.
Golf Oscar Romeo ready for departure Alpha 1.
Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo, hold position Alpha 1. After departure, clear to leave Southend controlled airspace. On track southwest, VFR, not above altitude 1,500 feet. Squawk 4575.
Hold position Alpha 1 after departure, leave controlled airspace southwest, VFR not above altitude 1,500 feet, squawk 4575, Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo.
It's important to stress that a departure clearance is not a clearance to line up or take off. The controller is telling me what to do after departure. The clue is in his instruction to hold position.
Golf Oscar Romeo, correct. Line up and wait, runway 23.
Line up and wait, runway 23, Golf Oscar Romeo.
You see this line of red lights here? This is called a stop bar. You must not cross a red stop bar if it's illuminated, even if you've been given a clearance to line up. You must wait until the lights are switched off, like so.
Golf Oscar Romeo, runway 23, clear for takeoff. Surface wind 320 degrees, 11 knots.
Runway 23, clear for takeoff, Golf Oscar Romeo. Temperatures and pressures are in the green. Airspeed alive at 50, 65, here we go. $1,500 feet. To go. Temperatures and pressures are in the green. Flaps are up. The difference here is we've got an altitude restriction of 1,500 feet. Mustn't go above that as we're in controlled airspace.
Golf Oscar Romeo, contact Southend Director 132.455. Bye-bye.
Contact Southend Director 132.455. Goodbye, Golf Oscar Romeo.
Service outside.
Hey, firm, thank you. Copy, India.
Southend Director, Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo. Good afternoon. On the climb out to 23, not above 1,500 feet VFR.
Golf Bravo Hotel Oscar Romeo, Southend Radar, Roger. Report your level.
Level 1,400 feet, 1018. Golf Oscar Romeo.
Golf Oscar Romeo, Roger. Clear to leave, not above 2,400 feet.
Clear to leave, not above altitude 2,400 feet. Golf Oscar Romeo.
Golf Oscar Romeo, leaving controlled airspace in 5 miles, basic service outside.
Basic service outside Golf Oscar Romeo. So we've just about to leave controlled airspace now. That is basically all there is to it. It's not that hard, it's not that scary.
Oscar Bravo, you can contact London now, 124.6.
Clearly it's a bit more sharp, a bit more concise, a bit more to the point, maybe a bit scary too. But just come on the frequency, do your best, and don't be afraid to ask if you're not sure of something.
To end this flight, I had a treat of a landing on runway 36 at Red Hill with its tight base leg due to Gatwick airspace.
Golf Oscar Romeo, runway 36, wind 310 degrees, 6 knots, clear to land.
Clear to land, runway 36, Golf Oscar Romeo.
Thanks for watching, and thanks to my paying supporters who've made this series possible. Check out the full series if you've missed any of the episodes. Next, I take my first flight to the Netherlands. Fly safely, my friends.